IVM.
Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today, I have Jahan Singh Bakshi with us on Audiogyan. Zahan has worked on digital and creative marketing strategy for films including Masaan, Lipstick Under My Burkha, Newton, and more. He currently divides his time between script development, film subtitling, collecting, curating, and writing about movie posters. Zahan's key eye for movie posters has also been featured in Mubi's online publication Notebook. And today we are here to discuss Posterphilia as an Audiogan case study with him. So, hey, thanks, Zahan, for giving your time, and it's a real pleasure to have you on Audiogan.
Thank you so much, Kedar. It's a total pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, if you can start by telling us what is Posterphilia, how and why did you start it, just to set context.
Sure. So, movie posters have been like kind of an obsession since really long, like at least like over a decade. I think it kind of was a combination of course, my love for movies, which I've been a movie buff since. I think distinctly I can remember when Lagan released in 2001 is when I kind of realized that I was really like passionate about films, and also I so remember that vividly because it was a very watershed year. I feel for Hindi cinema, like Lagan and Dil Chahta Hai pretty much changed the way Hindi films looked and felt, So anyway, and of course, I was always very interested in fonts and visual design, even though I've never formally studied design. So I think movie posters became like an amalgamation of those two things. Also, of course, I have a great love of like packaging and branding things. I think it's fun to make things sometimes look better than they are, and that's what movie posters often do, right? Like they make movies look better than they actually might be. So
Yeah.
I have, like I said, I've been kind of, I think, over since 2010, largely when I used to actually work. I worked briefly with a publicity design house called Secret, who've done, of course, campaigns for Rang De Basanti and a lot of Kal Ho Na Ho back then, and I think, I mean, they were not called that then when Kal Ho Na Ho happened, I think. But yeah, they set up their own house in Delhi 6. Anyway, they've done a lot of great work. So I worked with them for a brief time as a conceptualizer. I was really like new in Bombay then and figuring my way out. And that's when actually, during the process of working there, I would sit and reference for hours and hours and hours. And I think that's around when I started discovering the work of like so many like amazing poster designers around the globe, and being exposed to different kinds of design, different kind of sensibilities and aesthetics, and also observing poster art from various parts of the world. So yeah, I mean, I think over the last 10 years, I kind of ended up building like a pretty huge wealth of knowledge, apart from like a huge bank of posters, some of which has gotten deleted from drives because they crashed and stuff. But yeah, like I kept like collecting all this stuff, and in 2018 when I quit my day job, that's when I had this idea in my head for a really long time of doing this curation. But there's this gentleman called Adrian Curry who writes for movie.com, and he runs this amazing, it used to be a Tumblr and now it's an Instagram account called Movie Poster of the Day. And what I had in mind was kind of similar to what he does. He posts a poster of every day, pretty much similarly the way I do. And I didn't want to be like another copycat account, so I never did it until, like I said, I quit my job and I was kind of free. And then, like I thought that, okay, to hell with it, I'll just do it anyway. I'll try and kind of own it and like kind of make it my own, and so that it doesn't come across as just another account posting posters. So I thought maybe what I can do is like add my perspective to it, also like introduce these things to an Indian audience, and talk about it also from a more perhaps Indian perspective, and yeah, like showcase stuff that perhaps gets missed out there. even though both of us often like end up posting, the same kind of stuff. So yeah, so that is where it kind of started, and yeah, it started in September, or I think it was end 2018. That
Hmm.
also led to a film companion column. So I mean, for those who aren't aware, I write a column for Film Companion, which
Hmm.
yeah, right now is kind of on hold because of the whole coronavirus situation. But yeah, like I've been writing for them for a while, off and on, and yeah, so they reached out very kindly and said that like, hey, nobody writes about movie posters in India, like anywhere, so why don't you do that? So that was exciting. So yeah, it's literally something that started out on a whim, and it's grown and grown and grown, and now like yeah, like I mean, yeah, I'm like totally
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's a great uh like learning curve for like a side project which has been like a passion and like growing to become like close to about 10,000 followers. And yeah, I mean, it's a I mean, we look at Bollywood in a different light, whereas the posters which you have put up, at least which I've seen on Instagram, have like a different shade to it altogether.
right.
So yeah, I mean, so if you can share like what is the process of curation? I mean, uh, I've seen like few of the articles on Film Companion talking about say like posters with Kishore Kumar in it, or say raining posters.
Right.
So what is the thought behind it? Like if you can just briefly tell about that.
See, on Posterphilia, I mean, there's no set process to be honest. It's literally like I just keep like looking for stuff. Of late, it's been like I've been, but we'll get to that later, I guess. My obsession
Hmm.
has been looking for foreign posters for Indian films, and generally, I love apart from Indian films, I just love exploring new poster cultures. Like from around the world. So I keep like discovering new stuff and learning. But so I think the basic set criteria that I think follow, maybe if there is one on Postophilia, is that I try and not share stuff that is very commonly known or has been seen. Like I like to, so like say if there's a poster for Chinatown, I probably like the Hollywood poster for Chinatown is amazing, but I probably would like to share a Japanese or a Hungarian poster for that film that you probably haven't seen before. You know, so
Hmm.
so yeah,
Hmm.
I kind of stay away from very well known stuff, even though actually to an Indian audience sometimes I think even those might not be familiar enough. But and to be honest, like those will probably get me more likes and stuff. Like like I mean, given the hard work I put in, sometimes it's very disappointing to see that the poster doesn't get that kind of response. And I think people do tend to like stuff that is familiar. For example, like this is the I recently posted something for Parasite, and it's like the fourth or fifth time I posted something, and again, it got like the more response than any
Hmm.
other thing that I've posted, and that was pretty easily accessible. But anyway, having said
Hmm.
that, so yeah, I try and like, even though it might not be super popular always, but I try and I think the people who really appreciate it will appreciate it. So I try to bring that slightly unconventional thing, something that personally also would feel like a revelation to me, that oh, like there's this Czechoslovakian poster for this Hollywood film that I or Bollywood film that I kind of knew of. So it just gives you this totally different kind of angle to it. So that I think is one basic thing I follow. I try and not post stuff that is like pretty much out there, well known. So I mean, that doesn't need
Hmm.
more highlighting. So yeah,
Correct.
that's
But like, do you think, as in, like, how do you identify that this has been like really published by like the production house or the director or someone from the film itself, and not really an artist's
right.
depiction?
I
I'll tell
mean,
you
you mean
why.
like an
Because
alternate poster versus an official poster,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I'll tell you why. Because I was just stumbling upon, like, I stumbled upon one project called, I think, the Polish Poster Project or something,
Correct,
and it has like really beautiful Kill Bill ka posters and matlab, like really beautiful posters, but they are renditions by some artist and not really from the production house.
correct, correct.
So, how do you differentiate those?
I mean, this again, like no set way. But yeah, I do take great pains to, because so what a lot of people don't realize is that yeah, I mean, everything I post on my feed, largely, I think maybe I've made an exception once or something. But yeah, like, or maybe not even that. But yeah, I always make it a point to post official release posters. So yeah, I mean, I do double checks on everything that I kind of post, and I mean, I stick to websites and all that have release posters. They don't have alternative art. With Polish posters, though, I have to say actually, and I was just discussing this morning. It can get very confusing sometimes.
Correct.
So I have to do like a triple check when it comes to Polish posters, because yes, there are a lot of Polish posters made now by even current Polish artists for older films and all, and they are in that typical what we have come to know as the Polish poster style. So I think one way to differentiate it, of course, is to number one see the date of origin of the poster. So if I see a Pulp Fiction poster that has been made in, the date of origin is, whatever, in the 2000s, clearly it's not like a release poster from back then. It's something that's been made later as a commemorative thing or whatever, as an alternate art thing. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that is kind of roughly when it comes to Polish posters. I kind of first look at the date, and then I do a couple of other double checks. Like maybe go to websites which only feature release posters and not alternative art, because yeah, that sometimes can get confusing. But yeah, like that's
Correct.
what I mean. That's why I stick to, because I feel, of course, Polish posters just follow no rules anyway. But that's the challenge when it comes to, people often tend to compare alternative art with proper official release art, and I think it's a very unfair comparison, because mainstream or rather official release posters in most cases have certain constraints that, like, they need to sell a film. uh, like I said, not necessarily applicable to esoteric countries like Poland and stuff. But yeah, generally, like, they need to kind of, and when it comes to alternative posters, you can do pretty much anything, and this is why you just see so much variety, and often they play on the existing popularity of a film. So when you have an official release poster, you are actually introducing a film to an audience. When you have an alternative poster, it's often for a film that already exists and like is popular and people know about it, and you're kind of playing on that. So you don't have that
Mm-hmm.
responsibility of introducing the film to the audience, which is such a big thing, right? Which is just why, like,
Correct.
which is
Correct.
pretty much what posters are meant for. It's like the primary image that is put out to kind of, yeah, like, make you relate to the film. So yeah.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Like, have you identified any pattern or any trend that they say? Is there anything in the poster world in India or outside India? Whatever is as per
Definitely.
your
No,
research. Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk about India only right now, because I think
Hmm.
that's what I hesitate to really like put out as this thing, because it's not something I've really, really studied, like, in terms of proper research, like everything I see is online, and, I'd like to do that someday. But there are people better qualified than me to speak on the subject. Having said that, broadly, I'd say, uh, like, of course, there were, from the early, like, 40s 50s era, and then, like, to the 60s and 70s, there's an evolution of, like, style, and of also depending on who the artists were, prominent at the time. Like, earlier there were people like Didi Neroy and Kala Studio, and those artists. So those had a very distinct. So if you actually notice, there were the films from, like, the era of Fearless Nadia and I'm forgetting the name of that studio, the big studio, which kind of been depicted in Rangoon, Vishal Bhardwaj's film. So that
Hmm.
era of posters, if you see, those have a very typical kind of art style and typography. There used to be a magazine called Film India, which was very popular then, and it used to kind of have, what I understand, are like promotional covers for, so every whatever week or month when that magazine came out, like, it would feature a new film's artwork, and there was specially made artwork for that film on the cover, just the way now we have, like, magazine shoots with actors. So those had a very typical kind of artwork. Then there was later, yeah, like, again, like, Didi Roy posters feature very typical kind of typography. Then later, of course, there was Divakar Karkare, who's like a huge giant of, like, Indian poster art. D.R. Bhosle, I think these two are, like, really prominent names, and when you just search for movie posters in general, those are the most two common signatures you'll find on posters. So they all had very specific kind of styles. Diwakar Karkare, of course, was also famous for building up this whole Bachchan legend, So he used to use this knife painting kind of technique, which gave the posters a very distinct look. So there was all of that. So I think, yeah, like aesthetics definitely kind of evolved a little. Each artist had his or their specific style. I say his because unfortunately I don't think there were too many like female artists. But yeah, anyway, so they had the very specific styles. But I think when it came to the mid 70s and 80s, that's when the whole hand painted. That's when yeah, like photographic posters started coming into being, and the hand painted era, started kind of dying out slowly. And a lot of these people also, they didn't even, I don't think they wanted to also to make the transition to the so yeah, that led to number one, of course, even in the hand painted stuff. I think because the films became more action heavy, multi-star, so there was a slightly more delicate style earlier, a little more painterly, that turned into like a slightly what's now known as that typical, I think, bahar जो stereotype करते हैं, एक pulpy, messy Bollywood poster, the whole masala poster kind of thing. So that started happening, very like brash use of color and this and the other. But yeah, like I said, ultimately, I think it was around the mid 70s and 80s when, hand painted posters started dying out, and that crude photo cutout collage kind of style began to take over. And that was pretty much the norm mostly until the, I think, mid 90s or so, when slightly more sophisticated techniques started. Actually, not even mid 90s, but yeah, I mean, they were maybe like, DDLJ and all weren't that them cut out stuff, but they were still photographic and all. Yeah, but more towards the early 2000s, I think, when Photoshop and all of that came into being.
Correct.
And of course, it changed. Like Rahul Nanda and Himanshu Nanda, these, I think, they were one of the first people to introduce like new media techniques. And then, of course, there was, I think, there was a studio called Glamour by Simrit Barar. I think they did the Lagan and a bunch of these posters. There was Nanda's, and now, of course, there's a bunch of other agencies, marching ants and all. So yeah, now we moved completely to like obviously the whole Photoshop era, which again I don't think has necessarily been a very great thing here, because unfortunately in India, I don't think we've managed to make a very graceful transition from the hand painted era to the whatever analog cutout to the finally even the Photoshop era, like. So I feel that's where we kind of, like, I feel back then we had an own distinct aesthetic, and we could stand along with the rest of the world as like, okay, here, this is like our kind of design, and it was world class. But I feel now we've moved to a place where we're mostly aping uh, a Hollywood style of poster. We don't really have much of our own aesthetic. Very rarely do you see that, and yeah, the photoshopping lacks a certain finesse. Either it's overdone or it's too blatantly obvious. Uh, yeah. So
In fact, sorry to interrupt, but in fact, that's what was my next question. That you have written like a nice article about like what makes a great poster,
right.
and obviously it has a lot of collection of Hollywood posters. So, what can we learn from Hollywood in the backdrop of poster making?
Hard to really say that in one thing, and not that I hold Hollywood per se as one kind of beacon of like poster design. I think there's a lot of interesting artists working in other parts of the world. I mean, yeah, like in South America or in Europe sometimes. But having said that, see, of course,
I mean, our reference point for good posters is, I mean, I don't know how many people in India really watch world cinema in
right,
general. I
right,
mean,
right, or even American independent cinema, which is where
yeah.
most of the good poster work in Hollywood happens. But having said
Hmm.
that, yeah, there is, of course, number one, I think there's just like a bare, honestly, I'm not a technical like person, so I don't know what they do. But like, I mean, I just noticed like definitely there's a difference in the sheer like finish, like of the airbrushing of the Photoshop of like Hollywood posters. Like of late now, like a lot of Indian series, for example, Sacred Games or a Patal Lok, or because they're being made by Netflix and Amazon, the key art is often being done in America. And if you notice them, you'll see a distinct difference in tone. So there's I think a certain mastery of tone that they have, that we don't really. We're a bit like inconsistent on. We don't have as strong a hold on tone, and that is so hard to like actually explain. Like tonality.
Correct.
It's something you just
Correct.
either get or don't. You just see it. So there's that. There's yeah, like I mean, and generally I feel there's still, I mean, of course, like I said, there's enough like trashy or very conventional posters coming out of Hollywood also, but there's still, I think, a semblance of they still seem to care about it as an art. So I mean, even for, I mean, there's enough, like I said, trashy posters out of Hollywood, but then even for a tentpole film, you'll see some really great and sometimes groundbreaking design. I mean, you see the new Harley Quinn film. Uh, that's a pretty mainstream film, and the poster designs for the film are wild. Of course, the film is also kind of wild, but so it kind of fits. But then, yeah, like they've really pushed the envelope in terms of just how they look, and yeah, so that's one thing. Like finesse is one thing, but also I think there's the entire want of like pushing the envelope in terms of aesthetic, which and I don't blame the design agencies necessarily here. I think it's a bit of both. I think it's the design agencies also who sometimes come up with very rote and unoriginal and like copied stuff, and there's of course the studios who, in every design agency's uh, dustbin of like unused designs, you'll find like probably the best stuff they've done. Which just never
Mm.
gets passed. But then I guess that's like a worldwide thing also. Like I am sure that, I'm sure, yeah, like I'm positive that happens in Hollywood or any other place. Like, every agency will have that story that our best designs go to the waste bin. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, unfortunately, here.
Yeah, when you said like you're not like a really in-depth research kind of a background in poster making, but it would be really interesting to understand and get someone to understand, like explain, because when I see like Satyajit Ray's poster
Mm,
and the type of graphical work he and few of the contemporaries at that time have done,
mm.
they have sort of finished what you're talking about. But
Right.
I don't know where and how did it digressed or how did it get diluted. But uh,
See,
it's it's
actually,
it's
it would be unfair to actually compare that with this, because that's a completely different time, and you have Ray, who's like the singular. I mean, Ray is like stands out from the rest of Indian movie posters in general. He's like a genre
correct.
in himself. He's like one
Yeah,
of, and of course, what a lot of people know is that Ray was a graphic designer before he was a filmmaker. So he literally had that background. He was a proper like graphic designer, type designer. He created typefaces. So I mean, Ray is just like a different category. Is one of a kind. Like I was recently doing like a list for movie.com of my favorite Indian posters, and I decided to just stick to Hindi posters because number one, I didn't know enough for about like say South posters, and like I mean the history of them. But apart from that, I mean, yeah, like the only other main person I could think of whose posters, and all the posters are amazing, is Ray. And I was like, it would feel weird to just put one Ray poster there, because they're
Hmm.
just all so amazing. Like his work is seminal. So,
Yeah,
and like Ray, like I said, is not just a rarity in India. He's like a rarity in the world internationally. I mean, how many filmmakers do we know who are also designers, and such amazing designers at that?
correct.
So that's, I think, a completely different thing. Also, again, like worldwide, there was more art per se in poster design earlier than is now.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of an unfair comparison, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And can you give any names of like really great poster designers across the globe,
like
which we were
right
talking
now,
about more recently? Yeah, you were talking about this in before the call started, right?
right,
What can we like? We can have some sort of names
right,
who
right.
have like really done
So
great poster design.
so you know I'll first, like, of course, just talk mainly about like designers working in America. The first name, of course, and I've been kind of like literally fanboying over her work for the last decade, is Akiko Sternberger. Her handle on Instagram is Doyrivative, Doyrivative. Akiko has quietly been, she's been very low profile, like in terms of like interviews and all. It's only recently that she started doing press interviews. She's come on social media and actually started talking more about her work. She also published a book which I bought. Uh, but Akiko's been doing some of the most stunning work, in poster design over the last decade. I think I don't know how old she is. She's not very old, but she's already kind of like a legend in my eyes. She's done some amazing work. There's Haneke's Funny Games poster, the American one, with Naomi Watts, the close up of her face with the tear trickling down. These are like iconic designs. And and her mastery over, the reason I single her out always is because her mastery over tone and the diversity of work in her profile. She just doesn't have one style. Like, she's pretty much aced every style out there, whether it's like realistic digital painting, or whether it's other kinds of illustration, or whether it is high gloss typical Hollywood mainstream work. She's done it all, and she's aced all of it. So she's just flat out amazing. But apart from her, there's a lot of people. There's Brandon Schaefer, who does amazing work. There's someone called Sam Smith. They in fact had this great podcast which just ended, called The Poster Boys, that they used to host. It's still up there, so you can check it out. So there's them. There is so many people. Yeah, actually, I mean, if I just go through my Posterphilia follow list right now, yeah, because I follow so many people now that I kind of offhand lose track of
Lost
names,
track of it. Yeah.
names sometimes.
Yeah.
There's this wonderful, I must say, young Polish artist called Alexander Woliszewski. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but he's really young. He's like literally just out of college, and he's doing some like god level amazing work. There is Dan Petrus from Mexico, I think. Daniel Petrus, he does some great work. There is Andrew Bannister, who just from the UK, who just did this new turnaround. 360-degree view of the Parasite poster, the black and white edition that I just posted. There is the Boland Design Company. A lot of people. just yeah,
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll make like a list and I'll post it on
yeah,
in the
that'll
show
be great.
notes. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So just changing our tracks a bit, and I would like to also ask you about your like most like recent exploration of Bollywood posters, especially in Japan and other parts of the world. So can you share about that? I mean,
sure.
any insights there? And I'm particularly curious to know that at least what I saw for like Rajnikant's robot poster or
Right,
some of the other things, they are not just uh, transliterating it or just like changing
adapting it.
the
Yeah, like
icon,
it's not the same
adapting
art.
it, but they're completely redoing the artwork. Like
Right.
in case of like the flowers, they are like anime style or
Yeah,
Japanese style, whatever,
yeah,
like different style of artwork altogether. So any insights there, and a
right.
bit about these type of posters,
Sure.
what you have found out?
So, I mean, when it comes to Rajnikant, of course, there's like Japan, obviously, there's these Japanese posters, and Japan is like a country with a completely crazy poster aesthetic. I think there are fans like me worldwide of what Japan does with its posters, and it's so crazy because their design is like chaotic, basically, but there's a weird method to the madness where so there is some kind of pattern there which is really hard to put a finger to, but it doesn't follow any typical design rules, Japanese design. And yeah, it is one of the few countries which till date have retained that madness and like that individuality in their design. Because now, of course, now if you see foreign posters for a film, like say an Indian film or a Hollywood film, now it's become very globalized. So mostly you will see the same artwork adapted, to different countries. The title will change X, Y, Z, but the key art, what is called, will relatively remain the same. Japan is one of the few countries where, yeah, like I think it comes from, not that I've ever been to Japan, but the fact that they're a very high context culture, and there's a great specificity to their culture and their aesthetics. So yeah, I think that is probably where it comes from. But yeah, it's very fascinating to see how Japan always interprets its posters till date. Because like I said, other countries have often like lost that thing, or about it. But like Thailand, for example, used to have amazing vintage art, very reminiscent of Bollywood, actually, very colorful. And but that's kind of died out again, the way it's died out in India. Hand painted posters have died out, and they're looked at as dated now, so it's not happening anymore. But yeah, Japan, since yeah, the style wasn't even strictly necessarily hand painted. It was like a mix of like sometimes hand painted and sometimes like crazy kinds of collage and very playful use of type and stuff like that. So that has stayed on till now, and it's very fascinating to see that.
But how did you found these? Because Rajnikant, obviously, I mean, it's a very
Hmm.
क्लीशे क्वेश्चन कि रजनीकांत कैसे पहुंच गया उधर, बट रजनीकांत सब जगह है.
Right.
तो बट
No, and
they have Sridevi posters, and
right.
like how did you
So I, like I
found
said,
them?
I mean, I've been following Japanese posters for a while. I think I can't remember where I first saw them. Perhaps like I might have to like my credit might go to Adrian Curry, who I mentioned before, because he also posts a lot of like Japanese poster art for Hollywood films. So I've always been following Japanese posters. I don't know where along the way I kind of ended up finding stuff for Indian films, maybe on some website or something like that. But yeah, and then last year I pitched an article to Film Companion, of course, about and then that's when I really started digging for Indian movie posters in Japan. So I found a lot more stuff than I'd found before. But when it comes to Rajnikant, a little bit of like history there. So I mean, basically, I'm forgetting who got it there and stuff, but how Indian films kind of landed up in Japan is, I think, in around '95 or sometime in the mid '90s. The first mainstream film that had kind of released there was Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman, and that became like a huge hit. And then sometime later, this film of Rajnikant called Muthu, it released there, and it was like a gigantic smash hit, and that's what kind of made Rajnikant kind of this cult figure in Japan, who has a huge fan following. So after Muthu, there were a lot of other films that they kind of, obviously, distributors try to cash in on it, and actually, frankly, a lot of them didn't meet with the same success. One of them, I think, was a pretty like big disappointment commercially. But having said that, the Rajnikant aura has kind of endured still in Japan, and his films have consistently released there. And of course, now, like we've made kind of inroads into China, the country we are not supposed to name right now. Uh, Japanese, I mean, a lot of Bollywood films have also started releasing in Japan. So I've increasingly I've been seeing posters for Andhadhun and Gully Boy and a lot of Indian films over there as well. So yeah, I mean, that is pretty.
There's also a pattern of we having like a good presence in Russia as well, right?
Yes.
I mean, Raj Kapoor films were like very famous in Japan. So have you found any
Russia,
any
I mean.
posters there?
Yeah, so I mean, so yeah, like you were saying, like there's been this whole obsession. I think my pet obsession, Posterphilia, has been finding foreign language posters for Indian films, foreign origin posters. And sometime last year is when I think, again, I don't know where it started, but I found a couple of Russian posters or foreign posters for Raj Kapoor films. Raj Kapoor, of course, was like, I think, I think the whole socialist values in his film and all of that really appealed over there. So he became really big in Russia. There are crazy stories about how he once landed in Russia, and like his entire the taxi he was in or the car he was in was like lifted up by people and like carried on the road. So like there was like some kind of crazy craze about Raj Kapoor in the whole Soviet region in Turkey, where there's even like a remake of Avara. And so Raj Kapoor films really traveled, especially in that part of Europe, and hence there were like a lot of like unique art from different countries for his films. So as I kept digging into it, like I said, again, I discovered posters from Russia. I discovered posters from Yugoslavia, which doesn't exist anymore, from the Czech Republic, from Poland, from East Germany, from all kinds of Bulgaria, all kinds of countries for his films. And that's when, yeah, this whole deep dive into foreign posters started. I also acquired, by the way, this, which is one of my most prized possessions. I acquired this East German poster for Avara, which you can see on my feed. I just saw it, and it was just love at first sight. So that was an adventure in itself. Like, getting in touch with this poster seller from Germany, and just first making sure that the poster is in like good shape and all, and then while he was sending it to me, when he was literally taking it out of his cupboard to send it to me, it tore, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't want to sell you a damaged piece." And then I was like, "How damaged is it?" So thankfully, just a corner tore and whatever. So he sold it to me at like a slight discount, and I got it, and it's been lying with me over the last year. I just got it restored because these old East German posters were such brittle, thin paper, and they were old posters were always folded, right? The storage
Mm-hmm.
was in like kind of pretty fragile state. So yeah, I found out somebody here who does what is called linen backing. It's kind of uh,
Mm-hmm.
preserves the poster, and got that done. So anyway, so that I think it started with Raj Kapoor, but then I went on to find a lot of other stuff. Yeah, because after Raj Kapoor, of course, in Russia, when it comes to Russia, there was Mithun, who made a huge splash with Disco Dancer, and again that led to like a surge of Hindi films releasing in Russia and surrounding areas. So there are a lot of like posters for Mithun films over there. A lot of very obscure titles also sometimes. There are a couple for these Sridevi films. So yeah, till about the late 80s to early 90s, till about Tridev and all, these films were releasing in Russia. Parinda, Tridev, and other titles like Vodin Aiga and Olad and stuff like that. So and there's some crazy, really nutty art and beautiful art for them. Like sometimes you look at the art and you're like, what? Like this amazing, very avant-garde looking art for this film. so so yeah, so yeah, I've been finding a lot of those, and yeah, like some of them have just been sold randomly at auctions. I don't know where they went. Some of them are still available, and I'm trying to find a way to actually acquire those and kind of place them in an archive or something, because I feel, yeah, the reason I've been so fascinated with these foreign posters is that no one, I mean, almost no one knows about them. People don't know this shit existed. I've spoken to filmmakers and studios and shown them these posters of theirs, like from foreign countries, and they had no clue this stuff existed. So
Oh.
yeah, it's not even like they'll be lost from public memory. First, like they have to be brought into public memory to begin with. You know, so that's what, like, I mean, we do a terrible job of like archiving and preservation in this country, but still, at least like all our main Hindi mainstream posters, they, you people have seen them. They're somewhat in public memory. This stuff is like unheard of, and it's such a revelation, like you said. Like it's so fascinating always to see your own films depicted in this wildly different way, the way you won't even have imagined by some artist in some other country or some designers in some other part of the world. So yeah.
Correct, correct. In fact, I did one interview with Anupama Hoskare,
Mhm.
and she's a puppeteer.
Right.
And she said, like, if you go to Bulgaria and other parts of Europe, you will find like a lot of museums which have kept these cool-looking puppets,
Mhm.
especially in Germany. Now, she asked that where did you get these from, and they said like just 400 years ago from your country. And she was like, "Arey, yaar, why are we not musifying?" Like, and then I went on to ask her that is museumification like an Indian thing, and she said, like perhaps not, because we are constantly living museums, so we just keep creating, and then the rest of the world is consuming
Right.
or making it better or stuff like that. So it was an interesting conversation. So that's why, like, I remembered that because you when you said that our producers, directors may not be aware of something which is being done in the other part of the world with their artwork, is because we are simply busy making stuff here and like not really bothered about
Yeah.
what's happening out there. Yeah.
True. Though, yeah, I mean, we don't do a great job of preserving our own stuff. Yeah, I mean, Satyajit Ray's films are being restored by Martin Scorsese and, Criterion and the Academy. So
Yeah.
that's kind of sad, but hopefully we'll get better. There are people who are making.
Correct. In fact, the sad part is I would like to. I'm in touch with the person whom I wish to interview, but he's very old. He's about 85 right now,
Mm.
and he is sort of losing track of what he says, so I have to really meet him in person and not do it on the phone.
Right.
But he said that there are about 1800 movies which are non-talkie, which are silent films, and they are still yet to be like properly preserved. They are just lying there. Nobody knows about it, and in India. So that's I'm going to post a link of Scroll article. There's a brilliant article written on that. So
Right.
anyway, so we'll just, it's just a unending conversation. I wanted to just conclude with two more questions. One is, I mean, I understand that plagiarism itself is a different session altogether with so much things to be discussed. But
Yeah.
have you found any copycats, like big time, like almost as big as Geo Meet copying Zoom?
Any matlab, I mean, of course, everybody knows how rampant it has been, in Bollywood, like copying posters, and really blatantly, like it's like they don't even bother to disguise the original source. I mean, to be very honest, like I said, I have a huge problem. There's such a precedent of plagiarism here that anything that is remotely similar, also, like there'll be a dumb media article saying that, oh, ye to copy hai, and it might even not be a copy, because honestly, everything in I was just discussing this with Akiko recently, and that's what we were saying. Like there are hardly any new ideas in poster design, especially commercial poster design anymore. Everything has become a trope. Like every kind of design has been done already. So it's really all about how you put it into context and how you put a new twist to it now. Because there's hardly any idea now you can claim that ये तो original है, because you'll most likely find something similar made in some part of the world, if not here, before.
Hmm.
Having said that, yeah, of course, there is blatant plagiarism here. I think when it comes to plagiarism, I have to point a finger, maybe like their deadlines to meet and stuff, but I have to point a finger towards design agencies, because in my experience, that's what I've seen. Like the studios obviously are not aware of the different designs being made around the world, and if a studio decides to chipkow like a design from abroad, there's no way the studio will actually know unless they also really follow poster design that much. So they won't know. And often, I think what happens here is also we take a reference and we forget that the difference between like just referencing and like again like just copying it wholesale. So that happens very often. You'll see a reference and it's way too close to the reference. You can't call it a reference anymore. uh,
Correct.
yeah no, so,
So I mean, almost like a case of 1960s to 80s के बीच में का म्यूजिक जैसे रिप ऑफ मारा था. I think poster का like it has been all the way along. Is that a fair assumption?
I mean, old time mein, I think, I mean, of course, we've always, I think, in some ways, our name or like Bollywood has tried to, in some ways, ape Hollywood, and I think our poster aesthetic is also. But yeah, I mean, the case of blatant plagiarism, of course, is now like, where people, I don't know how they feel bold enough to just be that direct. I mean, there was a poster for like this series called Bhram, series original film called Bhram recently again, and they clearly ripped off the poster for the Jennifer Kent film The Nightingale, and I'm like dude, like at least just like maybe change the background color, you know, everything is the same. You're not even attempting to disguise it. But having said that, which is why I wrote this article on Film Companion, like I said, there's sometimes I feel oversimplification of this whole thing. My own poster was once like kind of called out for supposed plagiarism. The poster for Newton that we did, which had these fingers pointing all over at him, and it was compared to the poster for Gun Shatru, which is this old Satyajit Ray film. And uh, I mean, number one, like I mean, it was done by an American designer. He probably had never seen this country through, but I mean, his fingers pointing towards a man. Like I'll show you like 10 different layouts, which are like that, and in any case, like I know how that design came to be. So I mean, those kind of similarities happen, and it's not necessarily plagiarism per se. But yeah, I mean, I think you need basically a little more nuance and a little trained eye to tell the difference between, and that's what I tried to bring in with my article on Film Companion, like so that people just start like thoda sa seeing the difference between or where the lines are blurred, where the lines blur, and where the demarcations are very very clear between plagiarizing or inspiration or referencing or maybe even a tribute or like a pastiche as they call it. Uh,
Correct, correct.
so yeah, these are
Yeah, in fact, for those who are copying and those design studios, design agencies out there, I think can proudly say that you can just follow one line which Godada had said,
right.
is that it's not important where you take things from, it's where you
Take
take
them,
them to.
absolutely. And I've actually quoted
Yeah,
that line in my article. So yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly it. Yeah, like everything already exists. Sometimes,
correct.
unfortunately, it happens that like the ideas are so similar that you have to. I've had to scratch out designs that I've thought of, and I'm like it was like literally surreal once. There was a film called Ribbon. I thought of this design, and it was literally like came organically because there was a still existing still. We couldn't do a photo shoot. There was an existing still of the lead couple under this umbrella, and I thought of this design where there's graffiti drawn on top of the umbrella, and there's all these things raining on them, so as to speak.
Mm,
And literally the next day, and it wasn't even an existing design, that poster came out that day. The next day I went to IMP Awards, which is like the IMDb movie posters. The next day I saw a brand new poster with the exact same layout. Like it was literally the same thing. There was no difference between what I had thought of and that. And I was just stunned, and I had to then like just cancel out that idea because I was, there's no way we can make it different from this. It's
correct.
exactly the same. Even though
Yeah,
the context
yeah.
I was using it was probably very different from that, but yeah. So that also happens sometimes. Two people, sitting across the world can have the exact same idea.
Yeah.
It is mind-boggling, but it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading this book which is called "What is Art and 100 Other Important Questions," and in that, the writer Ernest Bingrill, he says like, how come people steal my ideas? And there's a short answer and a long answer format, and the short answer, he says that it's inevitable or something like that, and the long answer is that there were two islands, and both of them had monkeys which never communicated with each other.
Hmm.
And on one island, the monkey uh, happens to understand that, hey, the sea can wash away the dirt and the sand over a potato, and soon they understand that they can eat those potatoes, and they start eating it. At the same time, the same thing happens on the other island as well. Does that mean that they are copying? No, but, and I mean monkeys, right? So they are not copying really, but it just happened that you both were struck with the same idea.
Right.
So he puts it really nicely, in fact, in that book. Anyway, so we'll move to the last question. It has been an interesting conversation. So I don't have the latest stats, but I was just digging around. In 2018, India made about 1,813 films. China made around 1,082. Japan 613. US 576.
Hmm.
Uh, France a few hundreds, and then UK was about 202. So overall, we are talking about 6,000 films in a year, right?
Right.
So this is just 1 year,
Hmm.
and cinema has been going for 120 years. So I can't even calculate that. I want to ask you to conclude. What's the overall plan with Posterphilia? Like, do you think it's a humongous task, or you just want to keep it running as and when you stumble upon great posters? What's the future like
I
with
mean,
Posterphilia?
it's like you said, there's so many films, so it's like there's endless amount of stuff to post. Like every day, I have like 10 posters vying for my attention. And like, aaj kaun sa poster? I mean, currently, like say on my phone, I already have like a bank of like some 20, 30 images, which I'm like, yeah, in which order should I post them? And it's endless because I mean, there's like this entire vast bank of history to dig from, and there is new stuff coming out every day, and it's from all over the world. Like I said. Though yeah, I have tried to focus a little more on Indian cinema of late, and if not Indian, like I want to focus a little more because like I said, there's Adrian's blog and he does such an amazing job of it. So I'm trying to find gaps in that, which maybe so of late, like I said, I discovered posters from Thailand, and I've been completely fascinated by it. I also have like bought one which I'm very superstitious about. I'm not posting that image until it comes into my hands. And yeah, it's
Mhm.
gone to the UK right now because of the situation. here. But so yeah, there's that, and yeah, every second day I start discovering this like crazy. I recently got in touch with this guy from Thailand who's also like a huge poster buff on Posterphilia. He sells posters as well. So I started talking to him, and I had all these questions about Thai posters from him, and then he suddenly asked me that, hey, like I'm very interested in Iranian posters. Do you know where I can buy those? And I have no clue. I still don't know where you can buy them. But I started digging into Iranian film posters, and again, there was so much that I hadn't seen before. And we usually know the few filmmakers, the Makmal Buff, Farhadi, and these are the names we are usually familiar with. But there's a lot of other Iranian filmmakers, a lot of more mainstream films, and they had some very interesting poster designs. So yeah, it's actually a little maddening. It's endless. But what the future in terms of future plans, one thing I really am trying to put together is, like I said, these foreign posters for Indian films. I'm trying to find a way to kind of put them together. Yeah, like I mean, make a actual. I know, like we said, we're so terrible at archiving, but trying to find a way, because I see a lot of them which have already sold at online auctions, and I don't know if those can be retraced or recovered. I mean, God knows who's bought them and in what condition they are where. But there is stuff that I have tracked down from random sellers online that is still available to buy, and I'm sure they are like, they're liable to tear the way the Avara poster I bought did. So I am trying to find a way to uh, get like some kind of funding, or get someone who actually has the resources to also preserve them. So maybe just like, I don't know, acquire these posters in huge quantities from all over the world, whatever is available. Just get them here, do a grand ghar wapasi of foreign Indian posters, and yeah, hopefully kind of just restore them and archive them, and most importantly, digitize them. Oh my God, I cannot emphasize this enough. I feel it's so important to digitize stuff. I think Posterphilia itself is like my, DIY at home attempt to archive and digitize stuff. Sometimes I take very bad pictures actually, and I Photoshop them. And with my terrible Photoshopping, I wish I had better skills, but I somehow managed to I zoom into the pixels, I remove marks and realign them and stuff. So yeah, I mean, but it's so important to digitize stuff. Yeah, like there's an Art Satya poster, for example, the Indian poster for Art Satya. It's a beautiful poster, one of the most gorgeous Indian posters I've ever seen, and I
Yeah.
included it in my movie list. And there was no proper scan of this poster available online. If you just Google it, you'll find parts of it. You'll find the audio jacket, but you'll not find the proper whole one sheet poster ka, like a full image. Now it's
Hmm.
there because I have put it, but that was an adventure, like literally, like because I saw an image of this poster on the journalist Jahan Singh's blog. He
Hmm.
has an actual big copy of this poster that was gifted to him by Manjula Padmanabhan, who's the artist. She's his friend. So she gave him a signed copy, which he's framed. And he had posted a picture of it on his blog. And I was like, wow, this is so gorgeous. And when I was doing this list, I knew I had to include that Satya poster in that list. So I hounded poor Jay, and like I was like, please, 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 can you just take a photograph of this poster somehow? I'll clean it up on Photoshop. I'll do something, just get me
Hmm.
something. So and before that, of course, I got in touch with Manjula Padmanabhan through him. I asked her if she has a soft copy scan. She didn't. She's also in the US at the time. So she said her physical copy is also in India. So there was no way. I tried getting in touch with Mr. Nehlani, but again, he was somewhere out of reach, so I couldn't get in touch. So, anyways, it was untraceable. So I got Jay to take a picture on his mobile phone of the poster from an angle. Of course, it had reflections and all because it was framed, but we got it. I took help from some friends. I straightened it, realigned it, cleaned out the reflection, recolored it, and kind of just passed it through Manjula to make sure it kind of looks like the original. And then that's what you now like see in that article. So yeah, like I mean, I feel physical copies will ultimately die out. They're already dying out. They will die out. They're not going to be. They'll either die out. They'll keep remain in some museum or some this thing. And I'd like to quote what actually Ranjani Majumdar, who's a professor with JNU, I think, and she's done some amazing research and study on posters. And what she said in an article, it stuck with me. It's something that I've thought always. Posters are such a public art form. They were meant for the people. And I find it so incredibly frustrating when these posters either just die out or worse still are there, but they're just trapped in museums or galleries or in private collections and nobody gets to see them. What's the point, right? And you will sit
Yeah.
on this thing for a lifetime. Eventually it'll die out, or even if it doesn't, it'll just lie there and nobody will see it. So can we please like start digitizing this stuff and put them publicly somewhere where they can at least be seen and appreciated without terrible watermarks, preferably. Of course, there's a huge problem in India where people back images. It's literally happened to a fan poster I made. I made a fan poster for Mahanagar some years back, and somebody just whacked it, and it's been selling. Like I've seen it in people's homes, and they bought it. So people do that. They rip like high-res images that tell every artist to never put high-res images or big images of the artwork online because it will be misused by someone or the other. But yeah, at least like I mean, if you know, in a decent viewable size, if these posters can be made available in some form on a website or in a book for people to see, and there's some public record of it, that would be great. And I think that's something we need a lot of work done in. And yeah, I'm trying to make that happen.
Absolutely. Cool. I think this is a good note to end this. I mean, we can just go on and on because
Yeah,
it's so fascinating and so much to know, so much to document, so much to archive about
absolutely.
Hollywood, Bollywood in general.
I just started a new, I must mention this before I go, Instagram account also, by the way, called Title Recall. It's kind of an extension of Posterphilia. So one thing I noticed in a lot of old Indian posters, especially from the parallel cinema era, sometimes the posters weren't so great, but the title designs were just so distinctive and fascinating. And I thought this would be a great extension to Posterphilia, where I just document title logos and designs from Indian
Correct.
cinema, because that is also so unique to us, you know, the way we. So that
Yes.
is a parallel project that I've just started. It's very exciting. Got like a great response. Also, I think of interest to people who are just typographers and into type, you know, even if you're not a movie buff. Uh,
Correct.
so yeah, excited about that. Just seeing what I can do and where it goes. Yeah.
Superb, man. All the best for that as well.
Thank you.
So I'll put those links in the show notes. Once again, thanks a lot, Zahan, for giving your time. It was really wonderful talking to you.
Absolute pleasure, Kedar. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening till the end. I wanted to give a quick reminder to try Mubi, a curated streaming service to watch few of the best films across the globe. All you need to do is go to mubi.com/audiogyan, that is mubi.com/audiogyan, and sign up for a 30-day free trial to watch great cinema. Thank you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunyavan, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigritties. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks, guys. Without you, this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.